please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our first item tonight is the approval of the minutes for the April 7th, 2014 regular meeting. Any objections? Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Actually, I'm sorry. I was away from that meeting, so I'll abstain from that vote, 4-0. Our first item tonight is the Relay for Life of South County, the June 24th relay. We'll welcome Miss Rita Jacobs. Hi, come on up.
Here?
Yes, please.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, my name is Greta Jacobs. I'm from the American Cancer Society. And in your town, we have a Relay for Life event. It is the oldest fundraiser and our largest fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. We call it an event, but really it's an experience. It's driven by community members and volunteers right here in your town, and the event is June 20th. Some of the activities that are included in a Relay for Life event are ceremonies, an opening ceremony, a survivor ceremony, a luminaria ceremony, which is probably the most beautiful yet the most touching of all the ceremonies, in honor of those who have lost their life to cancer and in honor of those who are surviving cancer or who have survived cancer. And then we also have a fight back ceremony. This event is an overnight event, although you're not required to stay overnight, but it is overnight to represent the battle of cancer. So cancer never sleeps, so we walk a track all night in that honor of cancer never sleeping, and then in the morning we do our fight back, and the sun has risen, and we're there to celebrate all of those people who have been touched by cancer, caregivers and survivors alike. Now, for the past few years in South County, the Relay for Life has actually declined in participation and membership. So I'm here to hopefully invoke some of you to come to the event, to see what it's like, to get the community more involved as business owners, as policemen, as firemen. We like to do a we like to do a heroes lap to honor those in the community who have been in the service and who work, like I said, as firemen and policemen as well. So here tonight, just with information for anybody who might be interested in forming a team, who has a company that may want to sponsor or have a team from their company show up, or for anybody in the community to come by and see the event and participate in it even on that night. The event starts at 6 o'clock in the evening and then ends at 10 o'clock the next morning. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move on to the open forum. Please approach the mic, state your name and address. Yes, sir, in the front row. Second row, I'm sorry.
Steve.
Well.
Excuse me, sir. Thank you, council members, for giving me the opportunity to speak. You probably all know where I'm.
You can just say your name. Just say your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stephen Ferrandi. I'm
Thank
the
you.
president of the Eastwood Look Homeowners Association in Narragansett. And unfortunately, Saturday we had another third-year incident in a row of a riot, is what I have to say. I've emailed some, there's a video out there, which I know the chief has seen. He's told me about it. And it's just unbelievably unacceptable. It's actually frightening to look at. See that we could have something like this in our nice little town of Narragansett, which leads me to believe that with things like this going on, it's not really a nice little town. And, we need this to stop. So we don't have too many realtors in town. There's a handful of realtors. Why can't we get together with the realtors as far as enforcement, zoning, more fining? I would say maximum enforcement on everything that the town can do, because we're just not safe out there. I mean, James, you were side by side with me looking at what happened there that week, Saturday, and it was unbelievable. So there's nothing more I can say. You know, this has been going on for a long time. You guys have the power to try to direct the police or get things going and nip this problem in the bud if you can. I appreciate all the help that you can give us. We need it. No more time for committees and talking or anything like that. We know what all the problems are. We need action. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. Sir?
Harry Neild, 69 East Shore Road. Just by way of introduction, I was a member of the Road Improvement Committee that went through the whole exercise with the road improvement. I was selected by the committee to give the presentation to the town council, city, to explain what was going on. And when I read this article in the Times about what budget considerations were being made, it became patently obvious to me that neither the town manager, financial director, and maybe some other new members aren't quite up to speed on the interreaction between the maintenance budget in public works and the overall road improvement program. It was highly recommended that the maintenance piece become a piece of the improvement program, in which we cut out from 22 million down to 5 million. 17 million. We took out $5 million. But that was to make sure, both on the engineering and everybody's recommendation, that at a minimum, level funding of the road maintenance, and by all expectations, increase in the out years, the road maintenance. By doing this, cutting $750,000, you're undercutting the entire road improvement program. Because what you're doing, you're going to allow the top to slip and the bottom to try to catch up, and it won't happen. It won't happen. You've got plenty of files, etc., to go through this, go through my presentation. But to do this is suicidal. You're creating a bigger problem by doing this than solving what? You're still not going to solve your problem. That's all I have to say. I just couldn't believe it.
Thank you. Miss, sorry, I don't know your name.
Hello, my name is Kristen Ryan. I live at 1 Perkins Avenue, and it is a multifamily, which I own with my husband, and I live with my 16-month-old baby boy. I am also a business owner in Narragansett, and I am shaking so badly because I am furious. I am furious with this town. On Friday, March 28th, my car was, let's say, broken into. It was unlocked, I'll be honest. But it was broken into and it was vomited on by some punk-ass URI student, I'm going to assume. And then today, I had the gall to see the video that Mr. Ferranti just discussed, which is appalling. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you waiting for? You want to raise fines? You want someone to die? It basically shows a riotous war zone. I mean, I have a 16-month-old boy. This is a town that is so beautiful and close to my heart. I grew up here. I'm a lifelong resident, more or less. I moved here to start a wonderful life for me and my husband and my boy. I will point out that it is a multifamily that I own We do not rent to URI students. We are a year-round rental for older people who are just looking for a nice, beautiful, peaceful place to live. I want to know what you're going to do. I want to know what you're waiting for. I want to know what URI is going to do, because they are certainly playing a part in this. What are we waiting for? Just smile and nod, and that's really nice. But it's disgraceful. And I think that if you haven't seen it, you should go online. The website is BroBible, www.brobible.com. It basically shows Eastward Look blowing the fuck up. So
Ma'am,
do something.
Just please keep your language clean.
Okay.
This
Should
is
I
a-
do
this is
that?
a-
I
this
should
is
be
a-
calm?
This is a public meeting.
Well, please publicly do something. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
How about 24 Eagles Nest Terrace? I was just looking through this flyer here that Washington Trust Bank has put out and sent out, and they have it even on their television, about how you can get a free pass to go into Scarborough Beach. But I'm wondering if we can do something here in Narragansett to help promote either the pier or something like that, where they will maybe donate some money towards that. I mean, they do a lot of good things there. In fact, I'm going to get a pass myself for the beach, even though I get a free pass to get onto the water, but I still have to pay for parking. So anyway, you should look into this here and see what we can do to jump on the bandwagon and see if we can get some help from the Washington Trust Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, with the clipboard?
Yeah, my name is Joe Santos. I live on 29 Hope Lane. You know, I didn't have to see the video, you know, on YouTube, because I see it every single day. It's about time that someone does something about, you know, what's going on here in this town with the URI students, because it's really, you know, unacceptable. Like I said, I didn't have to see the video because I experienced that every single day, maybe at a less, you know, not as much as the video, but it's every single day. You know, we go through a hell in this town. And, you know, it's about time that, you know, someone decides that there's a lot of people accountable for this. URI is accountable, the homeowners are accountable, the rental agencies are accountable, because they all making money, and none of them really care about the residents of this town. You know, I have 6 grandchildren. And I can't have visit my, you know, they can't come and visit me because the swearing, the screaming, the yelling. You know, I can't go outside my house urinating, parking in my driveway when the cars are there. parking in the yard, knocking mailboxes down, destroying everything. It's about time, if you want to have the people coming to this town that care about this town, you need to do something about it. It's totally unacceptable. We pay taxes, and we never ask, we all pay taxes when the bill comes in. But, why should we be paying for our own security, because we can't come outside our houses, in the evening, and even during the day. This is not just in the evening. This is not just on weekends. It's not in Cinco de Mayo or whatever. It's every single day we go through hell. This is, like being in hell in this town. It's unbelievable. The people that are making the money, by the rental agencies and the people that rent these places, the money goes outside this town. And we, the ones that support this town, we support the stores, we support, all the people here. And you know what? We don't have peace and quiet. We don't have anything. We just go through hell every single day. It's a shame that I can't bring my grandchildren here because, I raised them, my daughters, to be nice, good citizens, and I can't bring them here because it's a hell. So, I don't know what anybody's going to do.
Thank you. Mr. Traeger.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
How are you feeling today? Feeling good?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing okay. I've been to a couple of high-level meetings at South Kingstown the last couple of weeks, so I know how the emotional nerves are in the people right now. For all kinds of reasons, I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but everybody should know. That's our problem. We don't know. We don't know, and we don't care. Someone this evening already got up and said, we need action. Well, I don't need the action that I've received from this council. That's not the kind of action that the public deserves. That isn't it. I called you this morning, but I didn't get a call back. I don't blame you for that. I know you're a busy man. But I'm going to ask you now. I'd like to know your reason for denying the sewer project for Jerusalem. And before you answer that, I want to say one more thing before I was talking with somebody. I had not even talked about this problem. And this person came out with this information that the federal government right now is going to make it a necessity for every single trailer park that is developed in the United States to have a sewer system in it. But we're not good enough down in Jerusalem for it, I guess. We can just be overlooked and looked at and just brushed aside by a comment by one of you people. I think that you are supposed to be serving the people. And if you don't want to do that, then do something else. You want to even do more than that, Mr. Callahan. You want to go higher in serving the people. But you're the one that I wanted the answer from. Why did you make that vote? It was a 2-3 vote. I want to know what's behind it. And I think I know what's behind it, to be honest with you. But I want to know from your lips. I don't even care if you do it tonight. Call me up. I'll come over to your office. I got no problem. I got time to take for this, even though I don't have the time. I'll take it. Because I am fed up with what I see in the national government, the decision-making that doesn't get made, and I'm sick and tired because this is it. This is what I've been told. I'm an old fart that doesn't know much. But I know one thing. All politics is local. So this is where it begins. And if it's not good here, it never will be good down further.
Mr. Traeger, I just thought that the project was too expensive and would take on too much debt for the town in case all 3 bond projects were passed.
Well, I
That's why.
guess you didn't hear what was said at the meetings. It's not going to cost the town anything.
It will cost the town money over time. It's going to take 20 years to pay off. I didn't think the town could take on that debt.
And we are going to pay it. So in other words, what you're saying to me is, and this is what actually the whole country is saying. I don't know who's saying it, though. I'm trying to pin the tail now a little bit better. You know what? They said that. I heard this recently. When you get older, you start seeing things a little clearer. I'm beginning to see things. I mean, I've always taken me twice as long. I hope I live long enough to get there and be able to at least voice it to the people. Because no, that's not a good reason, sir. That is not. When a need exists, you try to fill the need if it's possible, and it's very possible for this town to do it. And I am aware of being told one thing and then being dealt another hand. And I want to know where that hand, and I know there's one person on this council, I think, that knows where that hand was dealt. We got the majority vote down there. We did everything. We waited
Mr.
and
Traeger,
waited.
there's
and
a lot
we
of people
got
want.
nothing.
A lot of people want to speak. I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Time's
Thanks.
up. Ms.
I'll be
Stewart.
back.
Thank you. I know you've heard me many times over the years. I don't have to repeat myself. I thank all of you who have worked on this issue of the neighborhoods over the years. I thank Mrs. Nolan for her interest and that she's shown since she arrived. However, listening to the gentleman and talking about his grandchildren, 10 years ago, we had a woman and her husband, a couple, working couple in their 50s, lived on Green Lane. She was in tears before the council at that time. In tears, she would come here on a regular basis. She couldn't sleep. She was under physician's care for mental health and emotional and physical problems. She would go to her daughter's house in Massachusetts to sleep on weekends. This is how we have lived. And it continues and gets worse. And the town officials who have the responsibility or ability to change the situation before this beautiful little town is ruined forever. The demographics show what has been happening. School population and families down. Retirees are here. They're fleeing. They sell their homes. We have a student population. And people in this town who work for this town or volunteer for this town tell us, why you live in Eastwood Look anyway? You know what it's like. The students are no problem. They don't use services and resources. Excuse me a minute, they don't use services and resources? Do you want to talk to Jeff Cesare with the sewers and police chief and the firemen? They use more resources than I do. I don't cause you any troubles. And it's the full-time residents who volunteer for your community committees and work hard. I have researched issues over the years and supplied anyone who ever worked in this town with materials over and over. Are they in the circular files? The planning board, the zoning board, the community department, documentation from American Planning Associations, documentation from other towns and cities, what you can do through zoning, through density zoning, through different measures, the mitigation. I've researched forever, and I continue to research, but you know I'm getting old and I'm getting tired. And the house across from me, the family sold it, who'd lived there for 15 years. They couldn't tolerate any more. And I now have a 7-bedroom converted house across the street from me. She put in 7 bedrooms. She has another 7-bedroom on Willow Avenue and a 4-bedroom on Newport Avenue in Eastwood Look. And this is what is happening to our town, swallowing us up slowly by investors, realtors, landlords who don't care except for the bottom line dollar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jabshelowitz.
In 1943, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a decision that a person gets from a symbol the meaning he puts into it, referring to the American flag. Woodrow Wilson, in a speech, gave the words that things that the flag stands for were created by the experiences of a great people. Everything that it stands for was written by their own lives. The flag represents the U.S. Code, Title IV, Chapter 1, Section 8, states that the flag represents a living country and is in itself considered a living thing. Like any living thing, you must nurture it and treat it with respect. With the right to fly the U.S. flag comes the responsibility to fly it properly. As you all know, the Town Council last June unanimously passed a resolution which stated in part that the town no longer would rotate the third flag at the Narragansett Rotary, but permanently raise the Wounded Warrior flag in its place. This I thank Mr. Mannix for introducing and writing an excellent recommendation, and it will serve as a lasting reminder to our town of the sacrifices our military is making on behalf of these dangerous times. I had just returned from a trip visiting several of my children, and on April 22nd, the day before, on April 21st, the day after Easter, my son, who's a New York City fireman and a sergeant in the Army Reserve, took me to the 9/11 memorial. There were people from all over. The lines were extraordinary because it was the day after Easter. It was particularly moving for me because my son brought me around and told me the stories of people he had gone to college with that had died in the towers. People whose parents or brothers or sisters that had died in the towers, and the story of their families. When I came back into Narragansett the next night on April 22nd, as I came by the Narragansett Rotary, I was shocked to see that the Wounded Warrior flag was removed and replaced with the Armenian flag. The resolution of this council was ignored. The Armenian flag was raised and has been flying for at least 13 days at our Rotary. I'm not here to discuss the atrocities in Armenia. I come from a Jewish background, and my family was chased out of Russia, the Ukraine, Latvia, Lithuania, and probably other countries that I don't even know about. People were killed in the pogroms, members of the family were killed. I don't even have to go into it. My objection is flying foreign flags, which have been flying for years at the Rotary, which is state land maintained by the town.
Ms. Abshelis, I'm going to ask you to please wrap it up. We have to have a public hearing, 8 o'clock.
Given the shabby conditions of the flags, including, I contacted various branches of the government, including our governor and congressional delegations, and I am delighted to report to you tonight that I have in hand 3 flags to present to this council to use at the Rotary. I want to publicly thank Jerry Swaguatrito at the Office of Veteran Affairs and Representative Jan Malik, who helped with this. And I want to thank Susan Bonanno for bringing them 2 of the flags here. I'd like to show you, this is the Rhode Island
Oh, I didn't know
flag
that.
in various good shape. This is what the flag looks like when it is being
She over the 3 minutes.
of flags, which is U.S. government, talks about destroying the flags in a proper manner.
Excuse me, Mr. President, she's over the 3-minute limit. I don't need any more lessons on flags. I've heard enough of it for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's a shame, it's a shame that you have to make a personal attack on a man like Mr. Wright. You don't need to explain the flag to me. I understand it all.
Well, then how come you're on a town council that allows child flags to fly? It's a disgrace.
That's strictly your opinion, and unfortunately, you're way off base, way off base.
These flags came from the legislature, right?
I don't care where they came from. The whole issue could have been resolved in a more civil matter. And quite frankly, I don't want to listen to any more comments from you. I'm not interested in what you have to say at all.
One was missing an action flag, which was also a shame.
Mr. Gopian? Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
And this is the legacy that I give my children and my grandchildren. The legacy, I'm a citizen of the United States, and I'm entitled to advocate for what I think is proper in this
You're absolutely
democracy.
right. You can speak and say anything you want. I don't have to listen to you.
Remember this when people vote.
Hello, I'm Jana Gopian. I live at 60 Mumford Road in Narragansett. I'd like to respond to the recent reports in the media regarding a squabble relating to the display of flags in Narragansett. My response is directly related to a comment attributed to Karen Shabshilowitz, who was quoted in the paper as saying, "I don't care how long it's flown, it's disgusting that we allow this to go on," as she referred to the flying of the Armenian flag at the Rotary. I'm a U.S. military veteran who served this country honorably for 8 years. I'm also an Armenian-American citizen. My father, also an Armenian-American, served this country with distinction in the U.S. military for 3 decades. Myself, my father, and I'm sure the hundreds of thousands of Armenian-Americans who served this country in the U.S. military are huge supporters of the Wounded Warrior Project. Ms. Shabshilowitz has used the Armenian people and the town of Narragansett as fodder to settle her personal differences with Ted Wright. In doing so, Ms. Shabshilowitz has offended an entire ethnicity, the Armenians, with her insensitivity regarding the slaughter of 1.5 million innocent human beings. In the spirit of brevity, I offer a short history of the plight of the Armenian culture. Beginning in 1915, 1.5 million Armenians were slaughtered by the Turks in a premeditated, systematic extermination. At the end of the genocide in 1922, only 338,000 Armenians survived. The remaining survivors were forcibly removed or escaped from their homeland. In the 4th century AD, Armenia, the first nation in the world, was the first nation in the world, to adopt Christianity as their religion. Millions of human beings were slaughtered, not because of their color of their skin, their age, their gender, or their misdeeds. Rather, because of their recognition of Christianity and the perception that they may be sympathizers with the Western world, such as the United States. Ms. Shabshilowitz has offended an entire ethnicity. Her comments and actions are no less hurtful than those made by Donald Sterling, the owner of the LA Clippers, whose insensitivity and ignorance has recently been reported in the national media. Ms. Shabshilowitz should be ashamed of her behavior and insensitivity. A request was made to fly a flag for 1 day in remembrance, not in perpetuity, as was her request regarding the Wounded Warrior flag. I do not know Ted Wright very well, but I believe that he was also a veteran who served in the United States Marine Corps. This leads me to believe also he harbors no ill will towards the Wounded Warrior Project. In closing, I feel that Ms. Shabshilowitz owes the Armenian community a public apology. Whether overt or clandestine, prejudicial statements, actions, or behaviors are simply wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I have a couple more comments too, if I may. Karen said she didn't want to hear any more about the Armenian situation and the problems that they have there. But when I was in high school, I had a very dear friend of mine who came from the north part of the state, who happened to be Armenian. And I had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with him and his family, in particular his mother, who was a victim of the Holocaust, which is a pretty word they attach to a slaughter. And she went on to tell me what happened to her mother and father and her brothers and sisters as a result of this extermination process that they went over there. So somewhat, over the years, I was always involved with this Armenian, I won't call it a celebration, it's a memorial more than anything. I used to attend some of the ceremonies that they had in the, I think it's the North, they call it the North Burial Ground up on North Main Street. And I was always close to them. And there was hardly a time that I was in that lady's company at any time where there wasn't a little bit of sadness there. But one thing she was very proud of was the fact that she was an Armenian and that she had a lot of relatives and friends left after the slaughter in Rhode Island. She relayed to me a story one time of her whole village were forced to march into a desert. Before they went into the desert, they had to take their clothes off, and it was sure death. The march was surely a death march. If they fell down, they were shot or stabbed to death by the Turks. This is something she had to deal with. And as a result, I think it was the United States didn't even recognize the Holocaust until the 40s. It may have been later than that, I'm not really sure, but very, very late. And what they wanted to do with their flag presentation is to remind everybody of that Holocaust so that they didn't forget. Remind everybody in the world that that actually happened. And quite frankly, I don't see anything wrong with it, flying an Armenian flag on one of our flag staffs. And I'm sure Ted Wright didn't either. And there's one thing for sure I know, if you talk to him in a civil matter or talk to the town manager or anybody else on this council in a civil manner, I'm sure we could have compromised like we've ended up doing anyway. The fact of the matter is Ted Wright received the first Wounded Warrior flag, and it was too big to fly on that staff. And he went out and purchased his own Wounded Warrior flag at his own expense, as he does a lot of the flags down there. Now, the most recent complaint from Karen is the fact that the flags are down there and they're all tattered and torn. That's not the case. Are they a little worn with the weather? Yes, my flag is too at home. It's pretty hard to keep a flag in tip-top shape with the weather we've had in the last 3 or 4 months. Ted Wright is a dedicated citizen, and he wasn't treated fairly by Karen at all. And I find her behavior very, very objectionable. And I don't care to listen to anything more she has to say about flags, or for that matter, anything else. Thank you.
I have the right to face my accuser because I was misquoted.
Ma'am?
Quite a bit. And it was nothing personal against Armenia. I made that very clear from the beginning. So I'm being misquoted and misused.
Cam Weiner from 141 Central Street.
Ms. Winger?
Well, I came over to say how proud I was of Ted Wright, and I just want to remind him and everyone else, no good deed goes unpunished. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move on to the public hearing on the Narragansett fiscal year 2015 budget. Turn over to Ms. Nolan and Ms. Kenyon.
Okay, in front of you tonight, you have a PowerPoint show. Our town planner, Mr. DeLuca, will operate that for me. If you want to go to the first page. All right, just to explain to everybody, our tax revenue this year, these are the major drivers in our budget for 2014-2015. Tax revenue is up 2.24%. Allocation of fund balance reduced by $1,920,000 to zero because we didn't have enough fund balance that we could use any of it to offset the budget and not violate our own policy on how much money we should keep in the fund balance, which is 10%. Federal and state aid has been reduced from what we received in FY20 and FY 2013 and FY 2014 to almost $125,000. It was reduced. Allocation of other reserves, $61,500. Lower prior year tax revenue, $90,000. Next slide. Thank you. I have a budget summary here. I think it's plain to see. Our operating budgets are up approximately 14.27% overall, and you can attribute almost all of this to the pension funding, and that was a major driver of our budget, which is to honor our FIP, our plan we presented to the state in regards to funding the pension, and it raised the budgets 14.27%. I would like to say that almost every single budget in town was reduced. There was a couple of exceptions, but they were mandated by the state. For instance, the clerk's office was told that they need more election workers this year. So that's just one instance, but almost every single department did level fund or most reduced their budgets. I'd like to point out that the budget was reorganized, is it public safety, Laura, to include vehicle maintenance into Public Works. Public Works. All right, next page, Mike. Budget summary, sitting up there in front of you. Non-departmental expenses went up 3.5%. Transfers from two other funds went down almost 40%. Can you explain why?
That would be mostly the change in the transfer to other funds is related to capital projects. We cut capital projects there to very minimal capital projects and increase the pension contribution.
In the schools, the change is 1.5%, or $357,882, and that is absolutely due to the amount of pension increase that they are contributing this year. We have a contingency budget that's level funded. There was no change in it. It's $300,000. The total operating budget is $21,673,794, a change of $2,276,938. So the total general fund for this year is down 1.23%, or $654,314 from last year. Next page, please, Mr. DeLuca. FY 2015 recommended tax levy and enterprise rates. This just gives you kind of a little chart. You can go down and see that, yes, we did increase the property tax levy. This 2.71 is an old figure. We have, it's accurate? That's just about accurate. All right, that won't change. Water rates, we did have a change, though, did we not? No? You sure? United Water?
That's different from
all right. Wastewater rates, no fee increases. Beach facilities, no. Additional fee increases, and a motor vehicle tax stays at a $6,000 exemption. Our proposed property tax levy increase.
Got it.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Pam, can I just go back to the water rates? There was no increase? I thought
United Water increased their rates, which caused our water usage expense to go up, but we have not put a water rate increase through for our water fund. Our user fee
in the enterprise fund
has not gone up.
Thank you.
Back to proposed property tax levy increase. Last year, $9.80 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. With this budget as it stands right now, tonight, it is at $10.02 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. A $400,000 home is approximately $3,920 annually. With the new proposed residential rate to go into effect July 1st, a $400,000 home is $4,008 annually. That is an increase of $88 annually, or $22 per tax quarter. Change it, Mike? On the commercial side, the commercial tax rate last year, and for FY 2013 and 14, was 14.68 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. The proposed commercial rate for this year, $15.03 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. The $400,000 commercial property cost is $5,872 last year. This year, the $400,000 commercial property cost is $6,012, an increase of $140 annually, or $35 per tax quarter. We've had a series, next one, Mike. We've had a series of these budget workshops and public hearings, and there will be the first reading of the budget ordinance on May 19th, the second reading and the adoption of the budget on June 2nd. And one thing I would like to do is thank Ms. Kenyon for having come to work here February 1st and was able to get us to a balanced budget. And one, we had some major demands on us, which was to raise revenue, raise money, find new money for the pension increase of almost $6 million. And still, we can still announce these kind of rates tonight. Of course, what we did do was we cut out most of our capital planning budget for 2014, 2015. That was a huge amount of money. I want everybody to realize that we did have a water rate increase. We did have a general insurance increase. We did have a health care increase of 15%. Our electricity bills going up substantially. And our library had to reduce their donations and raise their wages. We did raise the tax rate to 98.5%, but we're still able to present a budget to you that's very close to $10.05 for the residential rate for 2014, 2015. So we can answer any questions anybody has.
Any question from the council? Ms. Garceau?
Thank you for your presentation. I do have some questions. One, will the assessments of the properties be going up? The values, assessments of the properties. In other words, if the assessment was $250,000 last year, will it be going up to $300,000? What is the assessment value? Is it going up or down?
The reval is actually set for the next year coming up, not into this budget. So unless you have done some additional work which would require an additional assessment, my answer would be no.
So the assessment
Should stay the same.
Should stay the same as it is this year.
Correct.
Thank you for that answer. That's good news. The other question that I have pertaining to the future, pertaining to the what they call the funding for the what do they call it? Benefits and all that. How is that going to change, and how are you going to change that in the future? Have you given that any thought? Or is this going to stay this way for the next 5 years?
Well, it's going. We committed to the state of Rhode Island to increase our pension by 20% this year, and then to bring us to 80% of what we should be at, and then next year to bring it up to 100% funding. So after that, Laura?
What that does is it puts into the budget basically the annual amount that we would need on an ongoing basis, so it wouldn't necessarily increase your taxes going forward after that. There are other avenues we are taking, such as in contract negotiations and with our employees to try to lower our liability as well.
I'm still a little bit confused why it won't go up. I'm not understanding. Yeah, I'm talking about the funding for the benefits. To reach what the fully funding.
The fully
right now it's 20%.
The fully funding of the ARC is right now we're funding it at 80%.
Yeah.
Next year it will be at 100%, which is what they call the annual required contribution. So that dollar amount, once it's set into the budget, that dollar amount will always stay. So you don't need additional taxes to fund that same dollar amount. So your taxes would not necessarily go up.
So next year, if it goes up to 100% for the funding, right now you say it's 80?
Correct. The
Okay,
difference
but
will be
it's not
next.
going to change. I don't understand.
It will change for next year, but the year following that, you already have 100% in. So it will. Your taxes might increase next year. There's a lot of other things that go into a budget, but your pension contribution will go up next year.
Okay, thank you. One more question, please. Pertaining to the question on the, I have to put my glasses on, sorry. Where did you have the itemized? Okay, this is it. Would you mind providing with me, you don't have to do it this evening, but if you could send it to me too, or the transfers to other funds? How did that happen? Who's transferring what? And so forth. I'd like to understand that better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vengermish.
Yeah, Richard Vangermersh, let's use 55 Osceola tonight. Unless we clear up our strategic problems, and one way to do it is privatization, which we have just refused to do. These problems on our unfunded pension and unfunded other post-employment benefits, we're going to witness this budget charade over the next 20 years, or bankruptcy, whichever is shorter. Personally, I believe OPEB, other post-employment benefits, will drive us to bankruptcy in about 14 years. The prime reason is that I believe that the assumption about the decrease of the rate of increase on medical costs, I think, is unwarranted. The major hurt in 2028 will be to the then current workers and to the more recent retirees. The town never had any interest in funding OPEB. Through the years, never. Various town councils just said no to funding the annual required contribution for pension, no more than 50% for the last 10 years, and let's say 20% of OPEB for the last 10 years. And on the OPEB, we were on a pay-as-you-go basis, which we almost continue on with. Both the unions and retirees seem not to really care about these funding policies. For 10 years, no one, I heard one complaint, and that was by Michael Riley when he chaired the pension committee. Well, other than that, I heard no one say, oh God, you've got to fund these pensions, you've got to fund OPEB. everything was silent, probably under the theory that silence would help keep these issues of overpromises out of the public eye. Well, they're finally in the public eye. I doubt that there ever will be a better time than now to bring the unfunded liabilities under control. There is still a positive momentum on solving these issues statewide, leaving Narragansett one of the last, or maybe the last holdout of poor financial management. This is a great achievement, and I'm sure there's going to be every effort made to not have us in that situation anymore. But really, it's now or never. Even West Warwick is out of the OPEB problem. We may be the worst community in the state on OPEB now. We must do it now. The state isn't going to care about one outlier for too long. The town does have leverage on retirees through the pulling out of the COLA and new employees. And we have leverage over current employees. Unfortunately, this means we will lose our chummy relationship with our retirees, our current workers, and our future workers. I've said this many times, we have been too chummy, too friendly. It's time that the town assert its power and risk being called unchummy.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski?
Stan Wojciechowski. I live in Narragansett. I do want to thank you for all the effort that you've had, you put in many meetings that I've sat in. You've made a real sincere effort to get this right. But I want to bring up the point also that we're in trouble. People out here are in trouble. The U.S. housing market is going downhill just when many economists thought it would be heading upward. Okay? You know, the housing market recovery is at least temporarily stalled, according to Bloomberg. We're in trouble. I don't see any turnaround happening. So financially, we're at a stalemate, and yes, you did a good job, but you know it's going to be a long term. It's a problem. We still have a problem. There's other things we could do. Some small things that I found was special appropriations. I understand the charitable feature here, but at this point here, I think the taxpayer needs a little charity. So the charitable situations that you deem that you should fund, not appropriate to come out of my pocketbook. I want to determine what charity I want to. I don't want to contribute. Me, the taxpayer, doesn't want to contribute to your charity of your choice. Okay. The second issue is I heard about the school demanding more money. I think there's a surplus that the school is carrying. So they're carrying a surplus, and yet they're asking for $350,000. I just think that's very unreasonable. They have a surplus. Use the surplus to pay for their negative problem on their budget. You know, we're all we've got a problem here, and we all want things. But you know, I drove through just the other day. I just drove through the school. I had to go into. I went to the auditorium, and by the way, it's beautiful in the auditorium in high school. The floors were really polished, nice and shiny. Very good maintenance job. And if you look around, you can see the green grass, beautiful green grass. And I saw the baseball diamond out there. The place is beautiful. I don't see where we need some bond issue Now, we might have a bleacher problem, but they've already raised somehow like $658,000 somewhere. I think that can fix the bleachers. So we can deal with the crisis, and that's all, as I said before, that's all we have to do right now is deal with crises and not go for the flare anymore, and that's going to help our budget. What I did like to hear, though, and I heard a little bit of it, was contract labor. The building inspector had a couple of contract labor people. I think we've got to coerce all or many of our department heads to consider contract labor, and I commend the town manager for looking at that issue. I heard a hiring freeze. Again, I want to bring up the hiring freeze, and contract labor has to come. We have a pension problem, and one of the ways to try to help that thing is we have to reduce our labor costs. Contract labor, we have to really get on that as a part-time. If we can have a tax assessor, a department head, and I can envision, right in my mind, I envision tax, not tax assessor, tax collector, no, tax department, one man in there. We have a tax assessor part-time. So again, contract labor to reduce our labor costs. I also heard something about a couple of firemen might be leaving. Well, maybe we need to go back to and have what you call a contract addendum. And then maybe our firemen, all new firemen for quite a while, will be volunteers. The people there will be in charge, but maybe the next 2 firemen that need to be hired ought to be volunteers. It happens everywhere. It happens many other places. So we have to look at some contract amendments that don't hurt our existing people who are beautiful, very committed. I don't want to hurt the existing people, but for the next 2 firemen, they need to be volunteers taught by the experts we have full-time right now. And that, I can even see that happening in the police department. If we need some policemen, I can see constables out there giving tickets, taking care of their drunks.
So Wojciechowski, your time's
So I can see we need some significant change in our thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch.
Dennis Lynch, 22 Central Street. So I've spent some time trying to get somewhat literate with where we are with the financial condition. I've attended some of the workshops, listened to the presentation last week from the Finance Committee, which I thought was exceptionally well done. And I think, those folks that Richard's a member of are to be congratulated, because a lot of time and effort and energy and passion for these, and we're fortunate as a community to have these resident experts that can help guide the way for the town. And the message from the Finance Committee, I think, was loud and clear, and we've heard it from some council members in the work sessions, that what's going on right now is really structurally unsustainable. It's really not a 1 or a 2 year problem. We're not going to be over it next year. We can have no tax increases and starve all of the services in the town, or we can have tax increases. One of the findings in the Finance Committee's report was that even if we have a 4% tax increase for the next 5 or 6 years, with minimum capital spending, we really don't dig ourselves out of the hole. So, as council members have said, it's a problem that's been a long time coming, and it needs a long-time structural fix. And I was thinking tonight that the council, I think it's right around this date, I'd like to congratulate you on, I think you've put in 75% of your presently elected tenure, so you really just have 25% of the tenure left. And that puts you in a really difficult position to try to fix a long-term structural problem. And as we hear tonight, there's so many urgent topics on the agenda that we all get consumed with sort of transactional issues. And we can shoot out certain ad hoc solutions to this, but you really need a thoughtful process to attack the underlying structural problems that we have here. And I would make a recommendation to the council for, what would be a really good legacy, whether some of you folks come back or not, and I'm sure some will, to really have a process in place that goes beyond 2-year terms and goes beyond us coming up here and firing ideas that might be terrific ideas or might not work at all, that you really carve out the amount of time for the work sessions and in these town council meetings to talk in depth about how we might solve some of our problems. And it's not all just pension reform either. Pension reform is just one leg of the stool here. There are other underlying structural issues. We would have to look at long-term privatization, long-term consolidation. I was looking at the tax rolls of other communities. So we have 15,000 odd people here, and South Kingston has 30,000 odd people, and they fund their services, they take care of 100% more people with a little under 50% more taxes. So we've got a real scale problem here that we have to work on, but not in a transactional basis. So before you go, before November comes, if you could consider putting in place something, establishing a work sessions to get the issues identified, and then actually carving out the time. I know it's so hard because so many people have really important pressing issues here, but to really have the discipline to carve out in a town meeting the 45 minutes or an hour twice a year to talk about how we dig ourselves out of this hole long term. And just, I think about what are the tangible ways you could implement that. Put into the town manager's duties and responsibilities annually to make sure that that gets into the agenda. And so even if one or more of you are not here, that we have a process and that continues on. Because I think as a town, we owe it to ourselves to sit down and talk just about not how we can fix it in 12 months or 24 months, but how we can fix it long term. So thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Traeger.
Well, good evening again. This is just a comment that I happen to attend both meetings, South Kingstown and Narragansett. I try to every week if I can stay awake. And I was at the South Kingstown meeting last week, and they put out their budget. And it was explained somewhat like you went about explaining, the town manager explained it, and I went through it step by step. What I get here in Narragansett, which is a good thing, I like a little bit of spicy stuff in the meetings. Sometimes South Kingstown can be very boring, but it hasn't been boring lately. But I'm just going to talk about this one thing. This budget was presented at South Kingstown, and at that meeting, they asked, just like you have, for public input, and not one person spoke one word about their budget. Now, why do I say that to you? Do I think that's good? No, I don't think that is good. But I think I know why. A little bit why. I don't know all why. If I knew all why, I could get up there and sit with you guys. But I don't know all why. I'm not a numbers person, number one. But I know one thing, that they have a town manager. And we have a new town manager. And when I'm at their meetings, I went to see the town manager last week or so ago. And I wanted to just try to get to know her and let her get to know where I'm coming from. Because I love having a town manager. But I'm waiting for it in in Narragansett. They have one in South, and when he leaves, I don't know what's going to happen over there. It's going to be interesting. It'll be very interesting. But they have a town manager that every item is explained. Everything they do, there's a little bit of a reasoning behind it. Over here, this group has to do, has, for some reason, has to do that stuff. I don't think that stuff should be, I'm not saying people shouldn't comment. They should comment. That's what I love about Narragansett. But what I don't love about Narragansett is I think that you guys are up there, and I believe, I could be wrong about this, and you can tell me, or somebody can tell me at another time, or right now if you want to, that I believe the town council is an overseeing group, a group that looks at what's going on in the town and looks at what a town manager that is trained to do the job and has done the job. In other places, we have an experienced town manager. And then you, when you see something going awry, you comment and you straighten it out. Or you take care of people that get up here and cry in front of you because they're so disappointed in the lack of services that they're getting. I would like to see in Narragansett, before they put me over the side when they throw my ashes over Skipstock, I'd like to see Narragansett become a town that a town manager is running and the town council is helping her do it, or him do it. That's how I feel about it. The budget, you got to do what you got to do. What are you going to do? Stop feeding people when you can't have enough money? We'll figure it out. We'll have to figure out how to get the money. Look at the world. Do you look at the news? My God, what's going on? What's going on? How many people are being killed every day for nothing?
Mr. Brady.
Patrick Grady, 156 Boston Neck Road. I'd just like to bring one example up regards the budget, and I think it's a blaring example of what is unsustainable for this town's budget, and it is the school department's request for $350,000. My understanding is, from looking at the screen tonight, that that is in the budget to give them $350,000 to pay their 38% pension payment. Am I correct in that? I think that's a terrible mistake. I think the council is not addressing the seriousness of the problem within the town. This is just one example. I'm sure this is true in every department, that you can cut $50,000 to $100,000 more than you have cut. But this is obvious. They have $700,000 reserved, excess money. They want to do a bond issue for what, $2.5 million, I believe? I'm not exact the number. They are saying they're going to pony up a certain amount. I don't know whether it's $300,000 or $500,000 to sweeten the pie so that they can become a bond issue, and the town approves it for a bond issue. I think the school department needs to pay its debt. It has the money to pay its pension obligations for this year, $700,000. It has the money to do it. It should not be asking the town council for half of it so that they can play with their money. They have to be disciplined just like the town has to be disciplined. They have the money, they need to pay it. And I really believe this council needs to address that issue. And I really think this council needs to go back and take another 10% out of every department until it hurts. Because we should not go into bankruptcy. We know it's not sustainable what we're doing. We're gambling that the stock market's going to be good in the next 2 years. If it isn't, we're down the tubes. We need to take action. You need to take action. You have the chance to do it. You're being asked to do it by the state, and I think the people of Narragansett want you to do it. And I think one of those examples is to make the school committee pony up the money they have to pay their debt. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like there's no further public comment on this hearing for the budget, so we'll close that hearing and move on to the consent. Do you want to go back to open forum? Want to go back to open forum? Or?
Do we have to close the public hearing? How does that work?
Yeah.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Would anyone have any item they'd like to remove? Motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 11, old business. A motion to adopt an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 10, Article 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Buildings and Building Regulations.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. This was discussed at length a few weeks back. Chief Partington's here. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 12, a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the solid waste and recycling services agreement with the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation for fiscal years 2015 through 17, subject to review and approval by the town solicitor.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Jeff, can you just talk about anything that's changed in that? If anything at all, or if it's the same. So proud of that program.
The fundamental language within the contract remains the same as it has for the last several iterations. It's a 3-year contract, and when the town enters into it, it allows us to capture the municipal, subsidized municipal tipping rate at Johnston for haulers that direct haul there from Narragansett. It also allows us to participate in any grants that may come along for recycling programs. And finally, it allows us to participate in any profit sharing from the state's recycling sales program that they have every year. And that money goes back into our program for recycling, which actually has been fairly successful. Our recycling rate in town went up from 23.4% to 36.9%, which puts us over the 35% state target for recycling, which is pretty good in 1 year. Our overall diversion rate actually went down a little bit, but it was skewed in 2012 because it included all the yard and construction debris and other waste following Hurricane Sandy. So everybody spiked a little bit in 2012, is back down to where you'd expect to see a normal level. There are a couple of changes in the contract that don't affect the town directly, but they would affect residents, for example, that took mattresses to the landfill or tires. There are some increases in price that the state is passing on that. But the big piece of it, Susan, is that the $32 a ton subsidized tipping rate remains the same. This will probably be the last 3 years that that'll be that way. The state loses money by subsidizing that rate every year, and it's not sustainable forever.
So more people are recycling in the town, is that what that means?
Yes.
In a nutshell. So I know people have asked about the recycling bins, and just was wondering if they have those for the residents, if they're, I know a lot of people are recycling, so I'm just curious how that works.
We actually have bins for sale that people can purchase, and we buy them through the state at a subsidized rate. We pass them on to the residents that rate. Don't quote me on the exact rate, but it's $4 and change for a recycling bin. Okay. You should talk to your hauler first, though, see what they like in terms of size and style. Some of the haulers like the rolling carts, especially if they've got equipment to lift it. If you don't have equipment to lift it, the large rolling carts can get pretty heavy when you load it up with newspapers and cans, so they prefer the smaller totes. But just check with your hauler on that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 13, a motion to approve the purchase of bioxide for the wastewater division from Evoqua Water Technologies, formerly Siemens Water Technologies, at the price of $2.40 per gallon for the fiscal year 2014-2015.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 14, a motion to approve change order number 1, final, in the amount of $81,583.42 for Sprague Bridge Pump Station improvements with Hart Engineering Corporation, and also accept an energy rebate incentive from National Grid in the amount of $25,200 for this project, making the net project increase to $56,383.42.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Brady? Like Mr. Cesarine to explain, or someone? Is that your question?
My question would be, what was the total amount of the original contract? And what was the $81,000 the change order for generally? If someone could explain that?
The original contract value as awarded by the council was $967,830. And just a brief summary of the project, it was for major upgrades and improvements to the pump station. It's our second largest station, and this contract included all new pumps, motors, valves, controls, piping, even a new roof on the building. So it was an extensive renovation project. Throughout the course of the project, we had a number of issues and items that we were able to negotiate with the contractor where we actually brought the price down by about $44,000. And then we also had the energy rebate of $25,200 that we applied for and received from National Grid. What drove the final price up, though, was our use of the contractor for a force main failure at the site. It was not directly related to the pump station work, but it happened at the site, and it so happened that the contractor was already mobilized and still there. We had an extensive amount of excavation work and piping repair work to fix that force main, and that's what drove the final dollar amount up. I still think it was a great value for the dollar. I think the repairs to the force main had the potential to be extraordinarily expensive and environmentally sensitive issue for us, but because we had Hart on site and we had the bypass pumping system that the council had approved last year in place already, we were able to save quite a bit of money on it. So, all in all, it was a good project. I think it ended well, and we have enough funds in the Wastewater Enterprise Fund to carry it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 15, a motion to award the bid for lead soil remediation, Kidney Avenue and North End water tank sites to the sole bidder, TMC Environmental Services, in the amount of $221,422.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I just have a question. Why was there only one sole bidder for that project? Is that unusual, or?
You're hot tonight, Mr. Cesarine.
It's a little unusual, Doug, although typically most projects like this are done by a general contractor in conjunction with other work. For example, if we had bid out the painting of the tanks with the cleaning of the site at the same time, then TMC would have been a subcontractor to a major painting company like Chicago Bridge and Iron or Aetna Steel or something. Typically, the lead work is not done as a separate item. In this case, though, because of the timing and because of the availability of funds, we need to clean both sites first and then have the ability to present a clean site to a future painting contractor.
Yeah, we discussed that before, I think, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's essential for us to deliver a clean site because we know there's still lead left on the tanks as well. And then when the painting contractor is done, he's responsible for giving us a clean site back.
Okay, thank you.
There's no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 16, a motion to establish an ad hoc working group on URI Narragansett student rental issues.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Bonanno or Ms. Nolan, would you like to discuss this? A little about
Yep.
foundation?
Pam, this is different than when President Dooley came and we were going to have a working committee, or is this the same
No,
committee?
This is the committee that we're going to form as a result of that meeting with the URI officials. We decided that night we wanted something nimble. We want a group that can respond immediately if needed, and how ironic that this was on the agenda already with what happened in...
I know. I just wanted you to back up about this. Just maybe give the audience, because today seems to be an emotional night with some of the stuff at URI, for maybe some of the people that didn't hear about President Dooley coming and how that committee began. So maybe that would be helpful and make people feel a little bit better about some of the action that the council has taken.
Well, when the URI officials came, it was the president of the University of Rhode Island, plus his top staff members. And we asked Dean Hoxie, Chief Hoxie and I asked specifically that we appoint somebody from top management at the University of Rhode Island to work directly with the police chief and myself on a daily basis if necessary. A contact, somebody that has their ear, not somebody way down the totem pole, but somebody at the top. They assigned the Assistant Dean of Students, Mary Jo Gonzalez, who's a very, very proactive, responsive, very much a doer kind of person. And we just sat recently, the chief and I sat with Ms. Gonzalez in my office, and we decided that what we really need to do is to form a committee that is light and nimble and that can move quickly. What we want on this committee is to have 3 citizens, one from each part of town, one in the south, one in the north, one at the Pier area, who can respond to the committee, the working group, with URI, and we can go over the problems and have an ear that will listen to us. And what we want to do is twice a year, we want to hold a town meeting, so to speak, here in these chambers, where everybody in town could come to talk about the problems that they're experiencing in their neighborhood. And maybe we can do something about it. We'll have the Rhode Island officials here. There's 2 that'll sit on this committee. Perhaps a member of the town council wants to sit on this committee. That's another.
So I just wanted to mention, I heard Steve say no more committees. You know, we've done URI Coalition, Carol, we've worked on a number of different committees. How is this group going to be more impactful? Is it the top leadership from the university with the top leadership of the town? Like, give us a little bit on how this is different from some of the other committees, because I personally have an interest in it, and I would like to be a part of this as well.
We want to see it. Dean and I and the university, Ms. Gonzalez, have talked. And what we feel that we need that will be most effective is a committee that can work nimbly. Not a big, many-faceted, many-membered committee, but a very small group that can work rather quickly and with aggression, with some force, with some authority behind it, and work directly with the university. I would ask the chief if you have any more, because of course it's his department that's so intimately involved with the problems that arise like this past weekend. And Dean, maybe you can refresh my memory as to the formation of a quick, light, nimble committee.
And Chief, if you could give us sort of just a rundown of what happened this weekend so we can sort of air that out at least.
Sure.
Thanks.
Saturday, I talked to Mr. Frandy actually Friday before the event, and in anticipation of this Saturday, we know it's the Saturday after the end of classes. It's called their reading week, and study to prep for this week of finals. We had cars down in the area that passed through the area routinely. We received a call prior to 3 o'clock for some parties, some complaints of noise. Sergeant Barber and 2 of the patrolmen went down, started to clear 2 houses that were the main issue at the time, and in talking to Sergeant Barber today, literally behind their back, the street filled in with people. With the day of social media that we're in, a text, a tweet, some type of notice goes out, and the party starts. At that point, the guys went strictly on a defensive mode. For lack of a better term, we called in the cavalry. We had 22 officers and state troopers there. 5 of the state troopers came down, 1 with a K-9. Once we had the resources available that we could safely enter the group, they started making arrests. As you see in the video, there are bottles flying back and forth across the street, a lot of roadway debris. One young lady that was injured, and we're not sure how she was injured. The speculation is that she punched a window or a door and injured herself. At the end of it, it was well over an hour to regain control of Green Lane. There were 18 arrests. There were, on a minor side of it, parking tickets. There was 1 car towed. Fortunately, no injuries to any of the officers involved, and we had, other than that 1 young lady, no reported injuries to any of the students. It took a while after. DPW had to be called to bring a street sweeper down, as well as some guys to clean the road. Tony Santilli's office, building inspector, became involved, as well as Bob Breyer from Minimum Housing. They came down. Bob worked Saturday evening, worked Sunday, and was back down there with Tony today. So that was that incident in a nutshell that day. What we did today was we do an after action or an incident scrub of every type of major incident like that to find out what we did wrong, where we could do a better job, and there's always a chance to do a better job. I think the guys on scene did a phenomenal job for the resources they had available. That being said, we can always improve. State Police talked to Lieutenant Colonel Winquist this morning. Their guys got to see firsthand what we deal with and what the residents deal with on a pretty regular basis. I think it was fairly eye-opening for them. The next 2 weeks, they have told me that they will dedicate resources to the Eastwood Look area for alcohol enforcement, DUI enforcement, whatever they need to do for the next couple of weeks so we can get the year-round residents through the end of the school year. I sent letters to the primary homeowners today. I think the manager sent a copy out to you all with what that letter was. Interestingly enough, and it goes to what the residents are saying, one of the gentlemen that owns one of the houses lives in Hawaii and sent back an email saying that we're 6 hours behind, sorry for the delay, can you please let me know a little more information, aloha. And that kind of emphasizes the problem that the homeowners are just not there and not overly concerned. So we'll deal with that. We'll look at the rental registration to contact every single property owner on Green Lane within the next week with a follow-up. And that's pretty much an overview.
I just have one question about the Green Lane. I mean, is that a continuous thing each year? I mean, I think from what I saw on something, it actually has a name.
Yeah, well, on YouTube anyway, it was the URI Epic Party, if you research it on YouTube. This is the third year. The first year that it happened, completely caught by surprise. There were maybe 4 years. Sorry, Steve. There were burning couches. The kids had emptied the houses out. It's just for Green Lane. Again, we knew it was coming. We had as many resources as we could initially, and it literally filled in behind the guys that were there.
I went down there to look at it, and by the time I got there, it was beyond the 3-officer control. So then the rest of the officers came from other communities, but it wasn't so much as cars driving in as just kids coming from the neighborhoods. Almost like, and it wasn't almost like a party. It was like they brought their own alcohol to the party. So it wasn't like there were 6 kegs in one house. It was really sort of a swarm almost.
Yeah, it's almost like a flash mob. It's, they walk. You know, the idea of putting a vehicle at the entrance to Jamestown Boulevard to stop the vehicle traffic from coming in. The guys aren't seeing as much vehicle traffic. They're walking from all over Eastwood Look, north and south, to go to this event, and I'm sure elsewhere.
Can I ask a question, Dean? Sure. I went down there too, a little after 6, and there was just one small party. Was this all during the day, or
Yes.
and it stopped? It didn't go into the night?
There were a couple more incidents later in the evening. There was one residence that had a brick thrown through the window later on at night. The total for the weekend for student arrests was 31 students arrested over the weekend for different issues. There were 21 noise complaints scattered throughout the weekend that we had to respond to.
So the only thing I want to say is every fall and every spring, and you know, a couple of years ago I did the ride around, and that was probably one of the worst experiences I've had going to Eastwood Look. Whatever the plan is, there should be a plan in place, knowing that it happens in the fall, it might happen during the year, but those 2 key times, we know every year, you know, we all know. So to be proactive when we work with URI and you work with the other agencies, because we know it, and it keeps happening, and we know it, and it keeps happening. So to the residents' point, it's enough. We really need to be much more aggressive down there for the residents. And I was happy that Julie came and we spoke about having a partnership. And I think one of the differences is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dean, because you were involved in URI Coalition, we have top leadership now involved where they hadn't been in the past.
Right.
And I think that's where the change can be made, because we can sit together all day long. I mean, we've done that, and it doesn't seem to impact it. So I'm optimistic, although this was a nightmare. I'm hopeful that the relationship that we're building with Mary Jo and the committee that we're going to form is going to really take some aggressive steps, because what I watched on the video and what I saw in the aftermath is not acceptable.
And one thing we found already today since that meeting, and as the manager's proposing, is that I reached out today to Mary Jo Gonzalez and Katrina Dorsey, who works for her. I reached out to the president's office, and now we have a contact, Kerry, now I apologize, I forget her last name. But it was someone for me to reach out to directly up and in the president's office to make sure he's aware of it, that we sent the video clip to him. I want him to see it. We want them to be aware. And, you know, one other interesting factor that is kind of a new development is that with the state police being involved, there was an Instagram picture that went out during the event of two students standing on top of the hood and the trunk of a state police vehicle. Of course, the troopers saw that, used their resources through the computer crimes division, were able to track down the youth with the help of, again, Sergeant Barber the next night, and both were arrested. One was held overnight and arraigned this morning and pled guilty. So they then forwarded reports to the president's office, which that's a whole new group of law enforcement that is now interacting with the university that really hasn't been there before. We've had very lengthy conversations with Colonel O'Donnell leading up to the preparation for this coming fall and what we want to accomplish in the, definitely the first 2 weeks to set the tone, send a message, and try to change the culture. So we are working on that. We'll continue to work on that, and I think this committee, it may be an idea that down the road, as an adjunct member, a member of the state police are also involved, because it is a state university. So, I mean, it can have that effect.
So I have an interest in being on this committee. I don't know if anybody else on the council, but I have an interest. I mean, one of the things we talk about in Eastwood Look is the people that live in the houses. And I give out communion down there, and I see cars and cars and cars. How many people? It's like boarding houses down there. So if this is going to talk about the rentals and the property, I'm very interested.
It is, and I think that's the focus of the group.
So thanks, Dean.
If I could add, we would ask that the council set a time for people to put their applications in. One from the southern part, one from the northern part, and one from the Pier area of Narragansett. And then you'll have to select who's going to sit on this group. It's, like I said, it's going to be a group that works with the top officials at URI, with our police department, the chief and his midnight sergeant, lieutenant, and some captains, and his community services officer, myself, and a member of the council. And we're just hoping that we could have maybe a month to put it together, maybe a month's time, that we could ask them to have their applications in and put it on the agenda, maybe June 17th. Is that that's our second June meeting? June 2nd and June, I think it's June 17th. So if you would consider that.
So have applications in by June 2nd, June 10th? What do you think?
What's the second meeting in June? Okay.
Why don't we try to do it for the first meeting in June?
The first meeting is what, the second?
Second and the 16th.
We have the 2nd and the 16th of June. Either one.
Second, I think it's good now.
What do you think, Doug?
Second?
I think we would probably get the names in before the first meeting in June, don't you?
All right,
Why can't
we
we do
could
that?
put it on the agenda for June 2nd to have
So-
the council select I don't know, do you
So we
want to
can
interview?
Select them on the
we should talk about whether you'd want to interview those candidates or not. We'll see how many we get, how many applications we get. And I'll let you know, you may want to set up a workshop to interview, I don't know.
So application should be in by that Monday before May 26th.
Yep, that would be perfect.
Was that Memorial Day?
Yes.
Yeah.
May 27th. That'll give us time to review them in our package.
I'll nominate Susan if she'd like to serve for the committee, unless someone else has a strong preference.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
If people want to talk. Yes, Mr. Santos, I believe it is. Just come to the mic so everybody can hear you.
Okay. With all due respect, I just want to say that it's not just, certain times a year. This goes on through the whole school year. Not at the same level as this weekend, but it's not, just, with the final exams. This goes on every single weekend. Every single weekend, I'm up until 3 o'clock in the morning, while, those people that rent those houses and those agencies that rent those houses are sleeping at home peacefully. And, they the ones that take all the money. And all these, the extra police force that we got to pay for, the town, all the taxpayers, we all pay for that. And you know what? Those people are the ones that are collecting the money. And I think it's about time that we impose some strict, you know what they do? They get a security deposit to protect their own property. And then they take the money for the damages. But, the town should impose, a non-refundable, trust or, amount of money that they take from each one of these properties and pay for the extra police force, for responding to all these problems and everything else. It shouldn't be the taxpayers. It should be the people that are actually benefiting from this. And like I said, a lot of the money goes out of state anyway. So, we all in the town of Narragansett are losers. We supplementing, these people's incomes. And you know what? If you look here tonight, do you see anyone here, from those property owners? Some of them, are running actually a business. They have 6 and 7 and 8 homes. It's a business. They should be forced to pay something towards the city. We supplement everything they make, And I think it's about time that, people start thinking about that. We need some peace and quiet. It's a shame that I can't bring my grandchildren here. It's a shame that, when people walk into this neighborhood and they see nothing but trash, in the neighborhood, we got to take the signs, from the entrances because, they're not kids, they're students, they're adults. We have people dying, all over this country, defending, this country and defending us that are, younger than they are. So, we shouldn't treat them as kids. They adults, and they know what they're doing, and they couldn't really care. I don't know if you all saw the video, but, it's, there's no words to describe. It's a riot. It was actually a riot. And, every day when I go, driving into my street, there's trash, there's broken glass, kids are totally drunk running down the street with kegs when the police goes into one house. And, I give a lot of credit to the police force, but what happens is that they don't spend enough time, in those houses to see what's going on because they hide in the room and there's hundreds of them. And, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of them. As soon as the police goes into one house, they run with the kegs down the street. I ought to take the videos and show, what I go through every single day. It's unbelievable. We go through hell every single day, every single day. And, and if there's going to be a committee to represent, the homeowners, that live here in Narragansett, I would like to be in the committee if possible.
What's your application?
I've been in safety for 33 and a half years. That's all I ever did. And, it's going to happen one of these days. It's only a matter of time where someone is going to get seriously hurt. Maybe not just one, but probably a lot more than one. And I think we shouldn't wait till that time comes, You know, I don't know what else to tell you, but, you know, you have to experience to really believe it. You know, that's all I can say. And probably the video, I hope that you all see it, because that's an example, maybe to the extreme, you know, but this goes on every single day. Just this week, you know, there was a whole bunch of drunk people in my neighborhood, and they had my neighbor's mailbox, and they went across the street and ran over, you know, the boxes for the underground utilities, right across. You know, when I talk about my grandchildren, it's also not only for what they see, but it's safety. You know, I wouldn't let them, you know, go on the street by themselves. You know, even with, you know, if I was there with them, I still wouldn't feel safe. Because these kids are drunk. They speed every single day in the neighborhood, about 50 miles down, you know, side streets. It's like I said, you got to see it to believe it, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Ryan.
Good God, there's so many.
I'm calmer now.
I hope so.
I just wanted to say that I don't want the video of Eastward Look to override the fact that this is really a town-wide problem. I live in the...
Ms. Ryan, you live in Perkins Avenue, correct?
Correct, yes.
I've
Yes, sir.
lived around that block for 38 years,
Yep.
more off and on.
Yep.
I'm not saying that college kids aren't an issue in town. They certainly are. But in that area, it's not the biggest thing in the world, I got to tell you. I mean, I speak from experience.
Okay. The house on the corner of Boone Street and South Pier Road
Yes.
has a party every weekend. You can't be serious.
There are kids there, for sure. Definitely, there are kids there.
Okay. Well, then we know, I guess, who's padding your pockets. And I would like to nominate myself for the committee, for the pier.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Pat Millay, and I do live in Eastwood Look, and everything you've heard tonight is absolutely the truth. But if you're going to have this committee, you're going to form this committee, I think we have to hit the pocketbook. That's the only thing that's going to work. And I think that if we find, there's got to be a way to do this, these real estate agents have a 3-bedroom house, they get the 3 names on a piece of paper, and they say that these 3 people are living in this house. I can assure you that is not true. The house diagonally across the street from me is a 4-bedroom house. Every night since last September, the day after Labor Day, they moved in, and there are 9 to 10 cars every single night. So you know darn well that there are not 3 or 4 people living in that house. It's nothing but a fraternity house that URI doesn't want over there and doesn't want the drinking and the going on, so Eastwood Look gets it. If we could somehow come up with these rules and regulations and go after the real estate people, they know. I said to the real estate man who was running that house, I said, you know, there are not 4 people in that house. And his answer to me was, I know, what are you going to do? Well, there's things that can be done. They don't care. And these stickers that they put on the front door, I'm totally in favor of them, don't misunderstand me, but these kids just scrape them right off. If you go around, you'll see little pieces of stickers. They do not fear the police. They do not fear anybody. And they're most disrespectful. And I think that the only thing we can do, or one of the things certainly that we can do, is figure out a way to find the homeowner and the real estate agent that has rented that property out. And maybe if they had to start paying a few fines, maybe we would get a little peace and quiet there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir, in the back.
My name is Ron Gilchrist. I live at 75 Bristol Road in Narragansett, Eastwood Look. I've been there for 38 years. I haven't appeared before this particular council. This is the first time for this particular group. But on numerous occasions over the 38 years, I have appeared before councils, and I have said the same things over and over and over again. And it just keeps getting worse. It's like a dripping faucet that cannot be taken care of. You just can't stop the dripping. Each drip is another family that leaves the neighborhood. The fabric of the community is gone. That three-bedroom raised ranch becomes a 6-bedroom sleeps 12. It doesn't take a super sleuth to look on any rental on Google or online and look on any of the rentals, and you'll see them all pop up. They're all, amazingly enough, there's even houses in our neighborhood that advertise sleeps 20. Right? Sleeps 20. Right? I'm nearly 65. I can tell you, I will leave that neighborhood eventually someday. Not of my own volition, but I will probably leave that neighborhood someday. And I guarantee you, my 3-bedroom cape, whoever buys it will turn it into a 6-bedroom cape, rents 12. That's the way it is. A couple of points to what was said here tonight by council members in regards to this particular committee. You know, I know Steve Ferrandi said enough with committees. I too agree with that. I was a long-term member of the coalition committee, and we did have top tier. We had a dean who served on the committee and came to a number of the meetings. And it certainly didn't take me long to figure out that all we were getting was stroked. That's it. We were getting stroked by the university. They could care less. They didn't really want to do anything. They gave us a hotline number that they never answered, and you'd never get a call back from. We literally got stroked to death on that one, and nothing ever happened. As each house is taken over and more rentals, we have 300 homes. As more and more rentals take over the neighborhood, we have well over 200 now out of the 300 are rented to 6, 8, 10, 20 people at a time. As that happens, the parties get larger and larger. The groups roam the neighborhood on foot late at night. They nap till 9:30, get up, then they preload. Mr. Kavanaugh, you mentioned about kegs. Most of the kegs are gone with keg registration and everything else. Most of the kegs are gone. It's beer cans, liquor bottles, right? And drinks that they make up at home, make up in their homes, so that they can wander the streets with gigantic Gatorade bottles filled with sports drinks, hard liquor, some pills, and some other stuff that they put in there. And then they wander the streets. They publicly urinate everywhere you could possibly imagine. I confronted the kids next door to me earlier this year because of extreme language in front of my young granddaughters. I was paid back that night, later on that night, when the 5 of them stood in my driveway and urinated in my driveway. And when I confronted them, I was threatened. I've been threatened so many times it could make your head spin. Doesn't stop me from speaking out against them. I can tell you that it is even known. It is even known that these parties, we're getting kids now from the high schools. We're getting kids from Narragansett High School, North Kingston High School, South Kingston High School, Charahoe, and even Westerly know of the parties and are coming down and mixing in the groups and wandering the streets late at night and showing up to the parties. We've heard a lot about Green Lane tonight. Well, we also have Ashley Court. We have Summit. We have Exeter Boulevard. We have the end of Bristol Road at Gloucester. We have Saconnet Boulevard. We have properties that have been turned into businesses. We have 200 private businesses who are laughing all the way to the bank. They're taking the money to out of state. The houses around me are owned by Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, directly around me. Right? That money's all going back. If you call them, they don't care. They won't even answer the phone call. They won't return your phone call. They think it's a joke. Even if you call their real estate people, right, you don't get a call back from their local real estate people either. It is. We've been abused so badly. As far as the beer cans and the trash, I can't, again, Mr. Santos can't take his grandchildren to the playground. I can't either. Try taking your kids to a playground, walking to a neighborhood playground, walking through broken bottles, trash, garbage. They throw the garbage out the windows. Trash, garbage, tampons, condoms, and every kind of personal clothing that you could possibly imagine in order to get to the playground. This is what we're faced with day in and day out. Another committee, sounds good, it's not gonna work. I hate to be like that. I'd like to say, gee, that'd be a great idea. Let's get a committee going and we'll get top tier from URI. URI does not care because it's not their problem. It's off their campus, and you know, they could care less because it's off their campus. Just in Beerkids, my wife this year started a little experiment, picking up some cans when she walks in the afternoon after work, just around our house, in the area around our house, in the few streets around our house. You know that right now in my shed, we have over 45 pounds of aluminum in bags that she just picked up in our neighborhood, trying to keep the neighborhood a little bit clean and to make an experiment on how many cans there were.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. Your time's up. I'm sorry.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Frandy.
Thank you, Council Member Steve Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road. What I have to say is, you know, all these committees start out with all of these great intentions. It's going to be small. I've heard lightning quick. And I'm not knocking anybody for trying these ideas, but, you know, I've been on the last 10 or 12 years since I've been down there. I've been on quite a few committees, and they all start out good with the right people on them. Then you might get a certain interest come in and say, well, we should add this person to the committee, or we need another voice here, and it ends up being all convoluted. And I got a couple of opinions about a committee. We don't need a committee for the town council to direct the town solicitors now to find out if there's anything we can do about a boarding house, as somebody's idiot. We don't need another committee to find out if they're possibly rooming houses. That can be directed by your staff. We don't need a committee to find out if they can be classified as possibly a business and taxed as a business. We don't need a committee to change the rent to registration, which we have in force right now. It's as good, and possibly increase that so you could get more revenue into the town. I mean, these are simple things that we've asked for, you know, and I'm just afraid that when we go into this committee...
Can I just interrupt you, Steve? I think I asked Pam and others about once a month about the ordinance about how many people can live in a house. So that's something we're talking about, we continue to talk about, to look into. We talked about it, looking into what Newport did, but it's a long road. But it's
Well,
not
we've
like
had-
we haven't paid attention to it.
We've had other issues, excuse me. Oh, go ahead, Doug, I'm sorry.
I just want to say that there has to be dialogue, whether you agree with the committee or not. If you're talking about enforcement issues, that's something outside of that committee. There's going to be something outside, and there may be some good ideas coming out of that committee. It's a whole separate unit working together to solve the problem. You're not going to function very well without that discussion.
Right,
And that needs to happen.
I understand.
And you and I have talked about some of the programs we're going. We can't go into a whole lot of detail about it.
Right.
We're changing direction. We're going to do something a little different. As you know, we're going to try something different.
Right.
The police, I think, did an outstanding job last Saturday, and I'm very happy that none of them were injured. Some serious injuries.
Yeah.
We're going to fix it.
No, I appreciate
We're going to
that.
fix it, and we can't be negative about it. We have to think about positive things. If we can get this committee and they can come out with just one good idea in the course of a year, they've accomplished something. Maybe they can, I don't care if it's collecting overdue parking tags over there, not letting them graduate till they pay their local parking tags. I'll use that for an example. It's helpful, and that's why I think that's what we should be focusing on. That's what we're talking about here, is that committee, and I think it's a positive thing.
Right, I just
Steve,
feel
I
that
do.
we shouldn't be letting these committees do the heavy lifting for items that, you know.
They're not going to
also
do
can
that.
be
They
done
can't
for
do
the
that
town.
if we're
That's
going to
my
be
concern.
successful.
And just one more concern is that if the committee stays as it is with the town manager, police chief, and just the affected people in the neighborhood, I would ask that it stays this way if it has to pass, or if you're considering passing it. I don't agree with it, but if you're considering passing it, that there's no change with the makeup of the committee at this point. And along the way, if you want to add someone or add, things want to change, then it has to go back in front of the council to get, for a hearing, to make any kind of changes to it. Because this is what I'm getting at, where things get kind of convoluted, and we add a member here, take out a member. So, Ms. Nolan came up with something that was supposed to be lightning quick, and I agree with some things, the people in the affected neighborhood. But, we can't always guarantee we're going to have the same people on that committee. And then it starts taking a turn another direction, and all of a sudden we have this committee that thinks it's going to be solving a lot of problems. It really can't get out of its own way, and it doesn't end up coming up with anything. There's plenty of good ideas besides the committee, some of the ones I've just mentioned, that I think the council can direct some of the staff to try to look at, and you don't need this committee to get to that point. That's all I had to say.
Can I say something here?
Sure.
I need a think tank. You don't want to call it a committee? It's a think tank. I've been here 7 months. I've been doing this job for 25 years as a town manager. I've never been anywhere where a situation is more appalling than what I saw happened here this weekend.
I'm not happy, but I'm glad you said that.
I'm brand new. Dean has been working on this, or has lived in this community all his life. We need to, as Doug said, to put our heads together and come up with something that's going to work. But I can't do it alone. I don't think that we have to call it a think tank, but I need it.
No, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Franny.
Thanks for your time.
Ms. Stewart?
Are you tired yet? All right. 2000, Maury Lujan started the old committee. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because people have a misconception that there weren't high-level people in the beginning, and there was. Tom Dugan, who was Mary Jo Gonzalez's boss, ran that committee for 5 or 6 years. So he was there. But the only things that got done were as a result of the coalition of neighborhood associations working with the realtors in small committees. And we pounded out things. And that's why you have rental registration. That's why you have the collaboration with the police going to URI and keeping URI informed. And all those protocols and processes that are now in place are the result of the neighborhood associations coming up with the ideas, sitting with the realtors, and the realtors cooperating. Once URI lost their alcohol millions to study our town, and we became a study. Then Tom Dugan left, and the other people came, and the realtors started leaving us, and the liquor store lady left, and on and just end. Okay, now we're back to this. So Mary Jo Gonzalez reports to Tom Dugan. When Dr. Dooley was here, I went up to Tom Dugan and brought up several suggestions based on some of my research. Oh, no, we can't do that. Oh, no, we can't do that. That's what I heard when we proposed the Student Code of Conduct for off-campus behavior. Oh, no, we can't do that. And we know that they had to do it because the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations forced them to basically step up to the plate because all other state universities in New England had off-campus behavior sanctions. So my point is, we have at the secondary education level, I can't remember her title, you know who I mean, the lawyer, whose mother lives in Eastwood Look, the former police chief, the one who's the Department of Education, Mancuso. Okay. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Eva?
I do, yes.
Yes.
I know who you're talking about.
Right. Okay.
What's going on here?
That's who we had to go to get anything done and force URI to step up to the plate. She's the, whatever her title is. That group of the higher education can tell URI some of the things that they must do because it's a state university. And so you need to be able to tap into any connections that you have, because they were the ones who forced URI to finally develop student code of conduct for off-campus behavior. You've got to use your resources. What about our reps, our senators? Can they do anything to force URI? Because their answer has always been, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. I want to see this group be able to respect URI and feel that they are listening and come up with some appropriate suggestions as Doug mentioned, about, restrictions perhaps on what year you can leave their campus to go off campus, or if there's other things. I'm not going to get into details right now, but use the powers of senators and reps from our area at the General Assembly, or use Mrs. Mancuso or Ms. Mancuso or whatever. That's my only suggestion. And by the way, I just want to mention, thanks to Dean, and what he had to do. But after that party on the other side, at 7:30 in the evening, I came back into my side, the north side, and there were 5 or 6 police cars breaking up a party on the corner of Ashton Lane and Exeter Boulevard. And there were so many students walking down the street that my car could not proceed down Exeter Boulevard, and I had to stop. But prior to getting to Exeter, when you turn off Burnside Avenue onto Charlestown Boulevard, which is the boulevard, which means it's a split road with a median strip, I turned and I saw coming towards me on my side, on the wrong side of the boulevard, a car coming at me. I leaned on my horn, I swerved, and as the student approached me and saw that he was driving on the wrong side of the street, he had to lean out the window and verbally abuse me.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
Good evening. Thank you for your patience tonight. I become very worried, Council President, when you say you don't think it's that bad in the pier. On my way to Mass Sunday morning, I noticed that we lost a stop sign on the corner of Gibson and South Pier Road, and there were 2 police officers there, and I asked them about it, and yes, it was done by someone that was driving drunk, and it was a young person. Was it a URI student? I don't know. Chief, can you tell me how many citations and arrests were issued over the weekend in that? 32 arrests. And I think our police department is doing a tremendous job, so they deserve everybody's thanks in our community. But we have a very serious problem in the pier, and I become very worried when people say, well, in Eastwood Look, it's confined to there, and no worries, the kids are not driving, they're walking to the parties. This is patently untrue. We know that our young people are leaving our bars to sit outside Charlie O's some night. People are leaving drunk and driving drunk. And the next time, someone may not mow down a stop sign. It might be my husband, your niece or nephew, someone's child, someone's mom or dad that's mowed down. And that's what I'm very, very worried about. Are we going to wait until someone is mowed down by someone driving drunk? Because we can carelessly say, oh, it's confined to one neighborhood and it's a walking issue. I assure you it isn't. And on Gibson Avenue, there's drag racing. Every Sunday morning, you can walk out with a plastic bag. Let's not ban plastic bags. Let's have more people using plastic bags to pick up the dozens and dozens and dozens of liquor bottles that are all over the Narragansett Pier after a Saturday night. I become very concerned. I know you've lived in the pier a lot longer than I have, James, but I've only lived there 5.5 years, and I can see it. I don't know why you can't.
There's definitely a difference, but comparing the pier to what happened on Saturday, it's just a different
I'm
scenario.
saying it's a town-wide problem. And I'm asking people to please connect the dots. When you see state representatives that are putting in bills to legalize pot, which is only going to create more of a problem now because people are going to be driving stoned. So in addition to alcohol, we're going to be having people that are driving stoned. Connect the dots. Representative Lally has lived in this town for probably, I don't know, I have no idea, but I know he's been a state representative. He was elected in 1989. Are you telling me no Democrat in our town council has ever reached out to Rep. Lally to ask you, all right, to help us with this? 24 years of representation? Representative Tansey, maybe instead of worrying about the bike path, you should get involved in this issue. I don't get it. We have a problem. Connect the dots. Enrollments in our high school and our middle school are down. The school superintendent is contemplating an idea of importing students into our community from Jamestown because our student population is down. Why is that? It might be that people don't want to move in here. Has that ever occurred to anybody?
Excuse me, what has
Thank
this
you.
got to do with having a committee, or forming up a committee? Mr. President, what has this conversation got to do with forming up a committee? Because that's what I don't quite understand.
Mr. Traeger?
Okay, 3 times in one night, wow. Anyway, I felt I'd like to mention a couple of things that are going through my mind. I was hoping somebody else would mention them before me. They are mentioning them in a way. They're mentioning all these things that happen. But what are these things that happen? They're things that are related to the way people think about other people and care about other people. Their lack of respect for, say, elders. Lack of respect, to swear at somebody when they come down the road. All these things you just heard, they're all based on a lack of caring about what other people's concerns are. And I think that the committee is a good idea. And I think Mr. McLaughlin's comment on the committee is the correct one. If one good idea comes out, but that's one thing. I don't think it's a police problem. It's only a police problem because we got these kinds of attitudes out there that this is a party town. It's been like this. I've been coming to all the meetings for quite a few years. This is an ongoing Narragansett problem. But what is the problem? I don't think the problem's being addressed that way. The problem needs to be focused on communicating to the student body, and that might be 5% of the student body. Unfortunately, this is the way it works. It works that way. That they are being disrespectful. They are not behaving in ways that are correct, or you can use 100 different adjectives that are a lot worse than that. They're just not doing the right thing by other people. I'll just give one slight thing that the committee might come up with. If you know 32 people were arrested, I'd like to see 32 pictures in the papers where these people come from, with a notation of what they were involved in and what they did. Every one of them. And you know who should pay for it? Figure that out, not the town. They should pay for it, or the parents should pay for it, whoever's supporting their activities and not really being cognizant of what they're doing. That's just one little idea, but there's a million things you can do, but it certainly can't be the police. The police department can't solve this problem. I hope you don't think that's going to happen. They can't. How can they? That's not what they're here for. Somebody already said that, and they're absolutely right. The police, this is a societal problem. This is a lack of respect for others.
Mr. Traeger, do you want the committee to establish or not? Yes?
I'm sorry.
You want the committee to be established or not? You do?
Say that one more time.
Do you want the
sir.
committee to be established or not?
I think, oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, the committee, the comment Mr. McLaughlin made is the correct one. You have to have dialogue. The problem is we haven't had the correct dialogue with the people that are involved in these activities. They think life is a big joke. They ought to go over to Bosnia, or over not Bosnia, but they ought to go over to Syria for a couple of minutes. See what people.
Mr. Alba?
I believe one way you can solve the problem is by making them lose their tuition. I mean, if it hits them in the pocket, then they're going to have to behave better. So if they lose their tuition, they have to start a whole new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski?
Sure, let's have the committee, but obviously, we got to have new people on the committee. We can't have the old people on the committee, because whatever the committees have done in the past has failed. So the committees must be made up, new people. We need new people with new ideas. And kind of bring this up a little bit is, who's responsible? Who is responsible? Is the mother responsible? The father responsible? Is really URI responsible? They've been building buildings like mad trying to get the kids out of here. Are they really responsible? Are the landlords really responsible? No, these wild kids are responsible. And I've said many times, we need to park 2 or 3 buses over there with the sign police, 2 or 3 buses. Now obviously we need some fire trucks with hoses. Obviously it's got out of hold, so we need a fire truck close by with hoses. And when there's an issue, we need to go in there and we need to just gather up the whole group and put them on a bus, bring them to the auditorium and fine them all. Fine them $2,000. We need to find the perpetrators, not the landlord like you're doing now. I haven't had a sticker in 38 years, and I paid thousands of dollars of rental fees, okay, with no. So here I am suffering because somebody's not recognizing that it's the child. Well, he's not a child. The adult is the problem. We must focus on those very few, probably on my 500 out of 5,000. 10%. We must get that 500, load them on a bus, and we must find them and stay on them. And I commend the chief for the 32 that he got. But I was hoping he would probably get about 500 of these kids. Load all of them in the bus and bring them here and find them. They are responsible. And that's what the committees haven't done in the past. They're focused on the landlord, focused on anybody. The kids realize that somebody else is going to take the hit. Whether it's the landlord, the parents, or the university, somebody else is taking a hit, so I can do what I want. That is the problem.
Do you want the committee or not?
Of course, have the committee, but make sure its mission is to focus on the persons disturbing the peace. They will be the ones who suffer for this, not someone else. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Number 17, a motion to dissolve the Affordable Housing Board and consider transfer of certain responsibilities to the Affordable Housing Trust.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion, this was due to the fact that the Affordable Housing Plan was already written and implemented, and the goal of the board was to create that plan, so the Affordable Housing Trust now takes over the actual implementation of it, so that's why the board is asked to be dissolved, and that was a unanimous vote, in case anyone was wondering. Not that we're not in favor of affordable housing in some respects, but this is just a efficiency situation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 18, a motion to introduce, read, and accept as a first reading an ordinance in amendment of Chapter 46 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Miscellaneous Offenses.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Dean, you want to or the manager, you want to talk about this just a minute?
Certainly. This came about because Susan Bonanno called me and asked specifically to look at our list of fines and at what state they were in, and then asked for a meeting with Dean and I and Nancy Delvaney from the school department as prevention abuse. And we sat with the chief and we determined that we needed to raise these fines. And if you will notice, there's some of them have a medium and a minimum. They're all pretty much commonly used fines. They have frequent usage, I think would be Dean's term. And disturbing the peace needs to go, we think, from 200 minimum to 500 maximum. Urinating or defecating in public, $200 across the board. Consumption of alcoholic beverages, $200. Unlawful possession, consumption, host, $300 to $500. That was at $200. And public nuisance, $300 to $500. And we feel that it will be another deterrent for incidences like we had over the weekend. I have nothing farther to say. I don't know if Chief Hoxie does?
Quick question from me. So what are the maximums determined by, Bob? Is there some limitation?
State law.
Oh, it is.
According to our solicitor, yes, the state law maximum is 500.
In all cases? Or just as it relates to where we've assigned it? So in others, where we haven't sort of pushed the maximum with that?
No, under the state law, we can only go up to $500.
There are some where we have not gone to 500.
Oh, yes, and I don't know why that is.
So, I mean, we worked together and they were the recommendation of the chief. I don't know if we wanted to increase. Why don't you come up and talk about the ones we sort of looked at?
We can certainly raise them to the max, and I think one of the important things we discussed is a minimum, so that the judge can't impose a fine less than that minimum. I think it's very important that if we're going out and doing the work, and the guys are taking the time to make the arrests and issue the citations, that there is a minimum amount of money that these kids know they have to pay, irregardless. We can, certainly it's in the judge's purview to go to 500.
Well, that's what I was suggesting. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be for an absolute amount. There could be a range, right?
Yes.
With the flexibility or discretion being established by the judge.
Correct. I think the important piece is a minimum amount of fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Chief.
One thing I was going to suggest, James, from all that we've heard, and I mean, tonight's been pretty harrowing to hear about what's going on in Eastwood Look, and I know it's not confined to Eastwood Look, but we know that the particular problems there. I was going to suggest maybe a work session with the municipal judge who we appoint on enforcement to make sure that there's a stricter approach to that enforcement. But in lieu of that, we also maybe don't give ranges. We actually just go to the maximums. That way, it's basically a no-tolerance policy, and there's not a lot of discretion there. I know that many judges like their discretion, but I think that in light of these problems, it's something we should think about and look at the statutes specifically for each of these and see if we can just go to the maximum statutory amount. And then the second thing I think we need to focus on in Eastwood Look, and I've said this to Steve and to others, early on, talked to Dean about it, is the parking ordinance. I know a lot of people do walk over there, and I get it, but I think the day-to-day problems that are more going on in places like that, if you have a strong parking ordinance where you actually are towing the vehicles, you are going to change behavior, because a drunken student who wakes up hungover the next morning, doesn't find their car, they might party somewhere else the next time. I mean, it's that simple. So those would be the things that I would go after, and from the things that I know, and I've seen partying a long time, and the town used to be more, less year-round, actually, and there was more partying in some places of town when I was younger. But I know in this era of disrespect that someone did mention, that we just, it's the Paris Hilton era of partying, right? It's not the small little couple people getting together, and it's brutal. These parties are absolutely brutal, and they're beyond words. So anyway, those are my two suggestions. I would really up the fines, maybe not have a range, and then I would really, and I know Mark is working on it, I believe, Pam, right? A parking ordinance with the towing number. And working with the neighbors too, so that if people park on your lawns, you have access to that phone number.
That towing
Mac,
ordinance.
the towing really isn't an issue. The ordinance is already in place for the towing. The only thing that's holding us up are signs, because you have to post the tow zone signs in those neighborhoods or whatever streets where you're going to tow them from.
So let's do the signs.
No,
yeah.
I've talked to Mr. Osterhut about that.
But
He
anyway,
knows.
that's the only thing, that's the only issue with the signs. I also wanted to put them down in Galilee too, because the people who park on the escape road for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and head off to Block Island and take their $30 parking tag for the 3 weeks parking, free parking, and abandon their car in other places in Galilee, and they hurt the businesses down there. And so anyway, we resolved that. That's a big thing, because last night, Saturday night, I took a ride through Eastwood Look when I got home after 8:30, and there's at least 50 cars there that needed to be tagged and or towed. That's what I saw. And that was after the police had gone through there and broke up all the parties.
So let's do it.
So it's something that needs to be done. It's another tool that the police department needs and can use in their enforcement issues in Eastwood Look and in the Galilee area too, which is just as important.
So can I just ask something? Matt just put up an idea to meet with the judge, and I mean, couldn't you convey that message as the manager about the enforcement? I mean, to sit down with the judge, is that sort of, I don't know, what do you think of that, Don?
We appoint the judge.
Yeah, I know, I'm just kind of wondering what that would be like. Couldn't we just say how important it is and we want them to enforce those fines? I mean...
As long as we don't cross any boundaries. I mean, judges, we just can't cross boundaries with judges. We just have to be sensitive to their position. And
no, I'm saying, why a workshop? Why can't you
whatever
just...
your direction is.
We talked about this earlier today, and yeah, I think he has to be a part of it, obviously. He's all part of the equation at the end where they end up in court. I don't see why he shouldn't be involved in the discussion. It doesn't make any sense for the police officer to write a summons and send it to court and then have it dismissed with a file for a year or whatever they do with them. Yeah, I think he needs to be a part of it. I think he could view that video just like everybody else does and see what the problems that the police officers are being faced with on the street. Maybe not as large a problem every single night, but smaller ones, similar ones to that. The one he sees in court is not the kid that's out there on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night, and I think that's a good idea. I think you probably should, maybe on, I don't know if a council member wants to do it, or the manager and the chief of police could sit down and do it. I'm sure they could resolve it, and I'm sure it'd be very receptive to any suggestions you may have. Thank you.
I would like to point out, I'm at the municipal court most Thursdays. I don't know where, things don't get dismissed in the municipal court. Things aren't filed in the municipal court.
So Bob, then go to 500 then. Take the law is better when there's clarity.
Whatever
go to the maximum.
I'm just saying, all I'm saying is the
The-
fine says it's $300, and kids constantly come in like, can we do this? Can we do community service? And it's always, no, the fine is $300. So I understand that it's fine, you want to talk with the judge. You should get, you probably should.
So then, no, I
they'll
said
give
that
him
was
the
what
same-
I originally wanted to do, and then I wanted to increase the amount to a 500 flat. That's actually what I said. I said originally that was what I was going to suggest, and then I want to go to 500. People are upset. We've got to start to respond.
No, I
Let's
understand.
do it.
I'm not even arguing that point. I'm just saying that everything is coming from the town council that is not being done at the municipal court. Nobody comes in and gets less than the minimum fine in the municipal court.
That's not what I said.
No, that's what has been said.
Well, that isn't what, you misunderstood what I said. I think he has to be a part of it. He has to be a part of the discussion. If we have those kinds of problems in Eastwood, look, the judge needs to know about that. And even the prosecuting officer or the solicitor needs to know that. They need to know those problems that we have. That's all I said. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the statistical data is coming out of the court. I know I can find out, but I'm not aware of any of that. But I think he needs to sit down with the manager and or members of the council, whatever, and the chief and others that are going to be involved in this process for it to be successful.
I was just going to comment on the fees. Just as a practical matter, I tend to, obviously, certainty is a good thing, but I think what we've tended to do in the past by creating a lot of certainty is created unintended consequences. So these ordinances actually apply not just to students. And so the folks that appear in front of the municipal court aren't only students. So I think just to preserve flexibility, we need to be mindful that the judge, who generally tends to be, I mean, he's been here a long time, I think he knows what the ability to apply discretion. I would hope that's why we appoint him. I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of establishing just a solid maximum, but I would want to raise all of these where we haven't to provide for him to, in fact, assess the maximum.
Looks like we have a lot of different ideas on this issue at the moment. I don't think we have much of a consensus. I don't think. I mean,
They sound
What's
a
that?
range.
range,
Max.
Max, Doug.
Just the way it is fine with me.
I'm fine with the
proposal?
way it is for now,
The
too.
proposal, the way it is
Yeah.
fine with me.
That's how I feel, too. I mean, the chief looked at it for the first round, there's an increase.
A step
Right
in the
on his
right direction.
recommendation.
Mr. Wojciechowski.
This is where you can make your statement. You maximize every fine you can. And is a possibility of a administration or processing fee to go along with these. Not a fine, a processing fee, administration fee, $500 each.
That's a
Why
great
not?
idea.
I mean, that's court fees, it's administration fees. So let's add more fees to the fines. So you got a fine of 500 or whatever it is, but you got an administration fee 500, you got a processing fee of 500, you'll walk away with $1,500. That's what we have to do. That's the thing to do. You don't need a committee to do this. Fix it now. Make this decision now.
Ms. Irons, do you have court costs? What's that, $35? $35? $35?
$35. That's a disgrace.
It's 55.
55. Disgrace. Disgrace compared to what we're spending. You're fining the landlords with a rental registration and you're $35, $55. This is not. $500 administration, $500 processing on top of the fines to each one. And if I don't care if the students not. If they're drunk and disorderly, this town's they're fed up with it, so we got to fix it. You get your chance now. Now's the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrandi.
Thank you, council members. I'll be brief. A couple of questions I had. I want to thank Dean for enforcing these. These are, just like they say, they're oftenly enforced fines. But I do agree with Matt that, maybe making them to the higher limit will be more of an impact. Some of these are only maybe $100 more than they were, and obviously every ordinance we have pertains to everyone that steps in the town or every residence. We know that, Glenna. But possibly maybe keeping it at the higher limit and keep that lower limit higher to the closer limit. So maybe you could put 400 minimum and a 500 maximum, or 300. I mean, that's up to the council, but I mean, at least that brings the fine up a little higher on each one, and then you still have that range. It's just a smaller range. Something you may want to consider to be, a little more forceful and make a real impact. Because, I mean, I know Dean has given a lot of these tickets out, so I mean, it's not really to be a revenue producer, but I think some of these people, once they decide that it's fine, maybe if it's a little higher, word would get around and they'd be a little more careful about, doing what they need to do, underage drinking and all of that stuff. So if we can prevent some of it, I look at it this way: if I can prevent 10 cases of beer from coming in my neighborhood, that's a success, even though there might be 200 still there. So I think we need an attitude like that, and maybe like that adjustment on the fine might help. Keep the higher limit as high as it can go, and up the lower limit, the mandatory lower.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Anyone want to make an amendment to the motion? Keep it the way it is? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 19, a motion to reappoint Dennis Lynch to the Conservation Commission Tree Board and to appoint Colin Hines to the Conservation Commission Tree Board for a 3-year term each, which will expire on 4/30/2017.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 20, a motion to schedule a work session to interview applicants for the Zoning Board of Review. I believe the date is May 19th.
I'll move that motion. That's good for me. Everybody, is
Is
that
it a
good?
Monday?
Second?
Next meeting. Before the next meeting, we have a second?
Yeah, we have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And the last item is the executive session.
Oh,
Motion. Oops, sorry.
Before you do that,
I'm
can I
sorry.
just make an announcement? There's some vacancies on some of the boards and commissions, so I just want to announce them. If people are interested, either here or at home, please go to the town hall and fill out an application. There are 2 openings in affordable housing. There's 1 in Galilee Advisory, 2 in the Harbor Management, 1 in the Historical Cemetery Commission, 1 in the Historic District Commission. The Juvenile Hearing Board has an opening. Park and Recreation has an opening. And the zoning has 1 opening. So I just wanted to let people know that there are a lot of vacancies. If you want to get involved, please fill out an application.
Yes, I did want to mention on a happier note in town, the Taste of the Towers was on Friday night, and the Towers, it was a very nice event. Towers Committee put a good job putting it together. Kate Vivian, Dave Austerhout, Anne-Marie Silvera, Carmen Moretti. I wanted to thank all of them for making that a special event for us. So just wanted to put that out there.
And I'm going to just piggyback on that. Over the weekend, the Welcome House had an open house, and they were working in Peacedale, and it was a wonderful opportunity to go see the shelter here in South County. And then I attended the Narragansett Little League Parade, and they had their opening day, so that was exciting. So I just wanted, after a tough meeting tonight, wanted to report some positive things that have going on in the town.
The last item is a motion to retire to executive session of the Town Council. Ms. Garceau. Would you like to speak? For 3 minutes? Only? Okay.
I wish to share some information with you, and it was in regards to Patty Arkwright appeared before you some time ago, a couple of meetings back, in regards to they need room expansion and so forth. In the budget workshop for the town council, which took place on March 26, 2008, Patty Arkwright, librarian, reviews the budget with the council, noting that there were 17 employees, which 6 are full-time workers. She notes that the library is open on Sundays from October to April. The librarian notes that the budget includes costs for feasibility as the library is running out of space. She notes that most of the items reflected a 5% increase. And my concern is this has been in the news since 2008. It's about time the town council starts to address this concern for this matter. The other thing is, there are people that believe that economic development believes if you take the municipalities' departments, such as the post office, the police department, and the library, and you put them in the pair, that's going to help economic development. I don't believe it will. You need something in there that's going to draw the people. I have one more item to share for your consideration, and it has to do with the Rhode Island DOT interagency meeting was held on October 31st, 2013. The purpose for that discussion was the South County Bike Path Contract Number 4. Present from Narragansett included Town Manager Nolan and Community Director Mr. DeLuca. Our IDOT has been requested by the town of Narragansett to complete a feasible study of the Seaview Bike route alignment. The alignment includes portions of the Canashit Farms property as well as a portion of the abandoned Seaview Railroad within the Narrow River. I received information today is that the feasibility study has not been completed to date. They are currently negotiating the hours to conduct the study with their consultant. The study will evaluate the Seaview bike route and other alternative routes identified by the town and previous studies.
Ms. Garcelle, we have another meeting to go to. Can you wrap it up, please?
I'm got one sentence. Our preliminary scheduled projects to complete the study by October or November of this year. I would appreciate it is that the town council, please keep us informed on what's taking place. It's missing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last item, motion to retire to executive session of the Town Council at the end of the May 5th, 2014 Town Council meeting in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 42464 to discuss investigative proceedings regarding allegation of misconduct, either civil or criminal, according with Rhode Island General Law 46465A4, and appoint Robert Donnelly, Assistant Town Solicitor, as Clerk Pro Tem. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor, Mr. Gopian?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Mr. Mannix? Ms. Spinano?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan, aye. Have a good night.